Welcome back to the Politics and Society podcast. This is just a quick update on the presidential election as we've had some breaking news. So, as of tonight, Jim Gavin has officially announced that he is stepping down from the presidential election. He will no longer be campaigning to be the President of Ireland. So, Marv, what was your initial reaction when you heard this news tonight?
Yeah, well, I was watching the Week in Politics debate. I didn't catch it this morning, but I was watching it, and then I got the text from yourself to look at the news. And while I was watching it, I just kind of thought he wasn't, he was a kind of not doing well at all. He was stumbling over words. He wasn't, he wasn't dealing with that accusation with revelation, I should say, about this whole thing now with the rent, that this illegal rent or unregistered rent from 2009 that was released to the press, I think, 2 days ago, and it's just absolutely tanked his campaign. It's unforgivable, really. In the midst of the housing crisis, it looks so bad. The journalist Louise Byrne put it to him after the thing today, basically saying, "How could you not have known this legislation was in place 5 years from 2004? By the time you were renting this property in 2009, it just, he suffered a series of gaffes throughout the campaign, and I think this was the final straw that he couldn't recover from."
Yeah, and I think the amount was 3,300 he owed to a tenant, but as you said, it is inexcusable, and especially in the wake of a housing crisis. We see in the initial first debate on Virgin Media, he talked about, the housing crisis and how his young teenage son and daughter won't be able to afford a house until they're in their 30s, and this is just rubbing salt into the wounds. But it really does highlight, the public scrutiny that politicians have to put up with in the media. And, from a human level, you would feel bad for him. And as we did mention before, it is a big reason why you might run a politician forward for a presidential election, because they have the vetting process already taken place. They had to be vetted by the people through many campaigns, as we saw with Catherine Connolly and Heather Humphreys, who was also in government. And, some of those decisions she made in government is coming back to bite her in the behind or whatever, but she and her and Catherine will now be the main focus of who do we think is going to be the president and stuff. But it is interesting to note, on our last episode, we left you off with saying, who do you think will be the president? And you said, I think Heather Humphreys, with a few transfers from Jim Gavin. So what way is it looking now, Marv?
Yeah, you see, it's interesting because we had the Sunday Independent poll there yesterday, which put Catherine Connolly on 32%. It put Heather Humphreys on, I think, 23%, and Jim Gavin was on 15%. And now with Gavin now gone, that's 15%. Up for grabs. There's also 30% don't knows, and again, as we know, not everyone in the don't know section is going to vote. There will be quite a number of spoil votes. I don't think it's going to be like a revolution. Like I walked past them yesterday at Connolly Station, and there wasn't a big gang of them. But there will be people spoiling their ballots too. But there are people within that 30% who are up for grabs. Now maybe they could have been undecided between Gavin and Humphreys. And that now they're just going to roll in behind Humphreys. I don't know, but I do think it's a lot more straightforward. It's a two-person shootout. We haven't had that now since 1973. Basically, like a first past the post election, just whoever gets the most votes wins. So it's completely changed this whole thing. So it's going to be interesting. To be honest, I don't know, but it's going to be a long 3 weeks ahead. We'll see if anything else comes out. But yeah, this is a blood sport. These presidential campaigns, they can get pretty nasty. They can get pretty controversial,
Yeah, and it wasn't too long ago that another Fianna Fáil candidate, Sean Gallagher, it was probably
was he a Fianna Fáil candidate?
Well, that's the thing, but that's what came back to bite him, and it just luck isn't on their side recently, and we talk about rewriting history, and Fine Gael could rewrite history with their own presidential candidate. Or their own president, because as history would tell you, great historian yourself, you tell us that, history hasn't been kind to the Fine Gael candidate. So, are they going to right that wrong this time round? Who knows?
Yeah, it's like, as I said, like I was thinking Humphreys had the advantage because she had Gavin's second preferences to call upon. But now, like, she's going to have to try and swoop all them into her now. I did think she was a lot more impressive this time around in the debate. I thought she was a bit more aggressive, a bit more assertive. But I do think Connolly was very, very good in the debate as well. I think she dealt very well with this question of this employee, the former prisoner. I thought she dealt with that very well. She didn't kind of backtrack. She kind of doubled down and kind of said, "No, I support rehabilitation." And yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but there's going to be a big pool of Gavin's voters to fight for and the undecided. And I think we can expect a lot more kind of aggressive campaigning, more kind of assertive debate. I think, again, we have the individual candidate interviews on both RTE and Virgin Media to come up, and then there'll be an actual proper debate now between the two candidates on prime time, I think 4 days before polling day. So I expect a lot more of an aggressive campaign between two candidates with very competing views on Ireland's position in the world and on domestic policy as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, look, it'll be very interesting, and there's going to be another episode out this week anyways, and we'll talk about, the lay of the land and what's going to happen with the presidential election now. But this was just purely a quick update, and look, if
Jim Gavin
production
tried to settle bed on a school night.
literally, if production isn't as up to standard as it was, my laptop nearly died here. It's 11 or 12. We've actually recorded this already and it didn't go to plan. So, if it's a lackluster performance, we apologise. But we'll keep you up to date with anything that's going on now in the next week in politics in terms of this presidential election. See you soon.